Sweet. Welcome to Good Humans Podcast. Kenny Stills. How you going, brother?
I'm exceptionally well. I think, bro, just coming in here and feeling the energy of this place and the conversation that we've had before getting this thing started, I feel great.
Man, it's good to catch up again. For anyone who's listening, Kenny is an ex-NFL player from over in America. You're doing some amazing work now with activism and really standing up for your rights and the rights of your people and educating people and going around to schools and doing not similar, but I guess similar in a way to me. Pro athlete, realize there's a bit more to life, realize there's a privilege that comes with it. And then there's a kind of, for me anyway, I just felt an importance of sharing the knowledge and sharing that privilege that I'd had to maybe make other people's lives better. Is that a pretty good snapshot, I guess?
Yeah, I just felt a responsibility.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
To be able to share the resources that really we have access to.
Yeah.
Because of sport. And because of the network that comes with, playing sports at a high level and having success. And so, yeah, man, I'm happy to be here.
Man, it's good to catch up again. Yeah, so for anyone who, no one will know this story, but me and Kenny met, in June 2023, last year.
Mm-hmm.
You're good friends with Fisher and their whole crew. And I was over in Malta for the Fisher, what was it called?
The Fun Fest.
Yeah.
So much fun.
What was Malta called? I can't even think of the name. Trip Festival.
Yes.
Trip Festival.
Yes.
And we spent a good couple of days together. We ended up in our friend, your good friend and my friend's super yacht jacuzzi until like a sunrise one morning. And we really got chatting about your story and my story after 3 or 4 days of partying and just having a great old time together. I got to know your story, I'd say, a tiny bit more. And I said to you that day, I was like, we have to get you on the podcast one day. And here we are in Australia, here in my little spare bedroom, finally catching up for a potty. So how's Australia been for you?
Oh, man, it's been great. I came out here to support Fish and see Fish again and Chloe. And to be able to see him like in his hometown right here, 30,000 people, it was like, I just stood there just smiling, happy to see someone else's success. It's been really cool for me in our relationship and being introduced to him to be able to like choose someone that I like am a fan of and like to be around and support. Like I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to do anything. Everywhere that I go is because I want to be there. And so to have, the invite to come here to Australia to see that and be a part of the festival and see that, was an honor for me to be able to come out here and take part and enjoy. So I've been having a good time.
Was it your first time to Australia?
No, I came 2016.
Okay.
Went to Melbourne, went to Sydney, was here for an event with the NFL. We were watching the Super Bowl with a bunch of Australian NFL fans. So that was cool, but it was more of like a business thing. So I've been here now almost 2 weeks, went up to Whit Sundays and got to dive the Great Barrier Reef and just been doing the outdoorsy stuff, man. I have found so much joy in like connecting with Mother Nature and, the animals here. And so it wasn't something that I really grew up on as a kid. I played sports, football, baseball, basketball. I ran track, but I never really had a connection to the earth. I grew up by the beach in Oceanside, California and San Diego. But in the Black community, we weren't really going to the beach to like swim or surf or do any of those things. We went with our clothes on. We were like walking up and down the beach, checking out the scenery, hanging out, causing trouble. And so I had this healthy respect and fear of the ocean. So I went to the beach and I'd get in the water, get the sand off me. But, I was an in and out type of person. I body surfed, maybe boogie boarded every once in a while. But I was afraid of the ocean, to keep it honest. And so it wasn't until COVID that I really was like, all right, I'm gonna conquer this fear or go address this fear of the ocean and learn to surf. And so
how's the surfing going?
The surfing's okay. I can get up regular stance and I can go down the
Cut
wave,
across the wave.
but like I haven't made a backside turn. I haven't really like slashed any water or done anything. Like, it's hard when you're an athlete, you like, have high expectations for yourself.
Yeah.
And so you expect to be
humbler.
great right away. And so, yeah, I say that surfing and golf are the two hardest sports that I've picked up. But I love them both. I love how they challenge me. I love the workout. I love being outside. And, I truly have a different connection and respect for the ocean to think about spending time with this energy in its last little bit of time, its last moments, and you get to get on that thing and ride it out. And you didn't pay for it, and you didn't turn a light switch on. There was, it's just this thing that's happening naturally, and you get to connect with it. It really, like blows my mind in a sense.
It's beautiful, huh?
To like be a part of.
I heard Rob Machado say that one day, and that's who I heard first explain surfing as like riding a wave that comes from thousands of miles out in the sea, builds up its energy and gets to the shore and just crashes on its last bit of life.
Yeah.
And you ride it. It's such a cool way to look at it, isn't it? I love that with snowboarding too. I know you snowboard a little bit too. There's no better feeling than getting off the top of a chairlift and just being like,
go.
I've got the fastest form of transport to get to the bottom of this hill right now with something strapped to my feet. Let's go.
Bro. Absolutely. Shout out Rob Machado. Rob's in Encinitas where I went to high school.
Oh yeah, you must.
Yeah, so I've been around him a bunch. I wouldn't say that we're good friends or anything, but I know Sophie, his wife. And,
sick. Yeah, Rob's a legend. I used to be sponsored by Hurley, so we did a couple things together back in the day.
Yeah.
It's a good time. But man, I want to get into your story because we're going to chat a bunch, and I know you have a really interesting story through your childhood into the NFL, into what you're doing now. I will ask you one question before we kick off though, and that is, what are you grateful for in your life right now?
Ooh, I'm grateful for a lot of things in my life right now, but really time. I would say time is the thing that I'm the most grateful for in this very moment, because I realize the privilege I have to be able to have the freedom to do the things that I want to do, and also have gotten to the age where I know what I want and I know what I want to do. I remember having confusion, even while playing sport, trying to figure out, okay, what's going to be next or what's happening. And so over the last couple of years since I haven't been playing, my focus has been on living. Like, how do you live life? Now that you have the freedom to do it, the time to do it, how do you do that? And so, I'm just grateful for the time to be able to reflect and live and not really truly have any worries.
I love that, man. It's such a great way to look at it. Because we're going to catch up to it at the end. And I love talking about this because I spoke to you off air real quickly, telling you what I do now for work and the message I try and share, this idea of not attaching your value to your career. And also, as athletes, finishing your career can be really difficult. What is it that you want to do now?
Yeah.
We'll catch back up to it, but just quickly now so people can see where we're going to get to. Because I know, we were speaking about it before we walked in the room now. It's pretty beautiful.
Ultimately, like long-term goal, I'd love to be a part of building a wellness center, like a Disneyland for healing, right? Every healing modality or mechanism under one roof, and being able to allow people to democratize their health, right? So you come in, you get diagnosed with whatever it is, and then we're able to say, hey, these are the things that we think can possibly help you. Are you interested in any of these things? We have the best facilitators here. We have the best medicine here, and we want to help you help yourself.
What feels right for you, not just take this and it'll make you better.
And so that could be anything from, animal therapy to brain waves to psychedelics to whatever we consider healing or whatever that you consider healing. We want to be able to offer that to you in a place with the best facilitators there to help.
Right.
And so I would say that's my long-term goal. I talk about that a lot. I try to manifest that a lot, but really just focusing on living, like I said, but just being the best version of myself that I can be. Always just adding tools to my toolbox and being able to lead, lead by example and hope that radiates to other people and really just be a sponge, right? If I can go into a place and I'm being the best version of myself and I see somebody else doing the same thing, then I can, pick and choose and learn from that person as well and continue to add those notches to my belt in a way that, makes me feel good, but also serves other people.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, man. That's why I love doing this podcast, getting connected with people like you, learn from people like you through your story, through your experiences. And I know everyone listening to this podcast is going to get so much value out of the rest of this chat because I'm very excited to hear your story and get to know you a little bit better, man. Yeah. So let's go back to the start. You said before you grew up in Oceanside, California, Southern California. What was life like as a kid? What do I need to know? Let's talk up until high school about your upbringing. That'll make me understand a bit more about Kenny Steele.
Cool. Yeah. So I was born in Minnesota, which is, I was born in Minnesota. My dad played in the NFL as well. So he played for the Vikings and they're in Minnesota. And my mom's from Minnesota. So uh, my mom's Mexican, Mexican American. My dad's black. My great grandparents immigrated from Mexico, Chihuahua, Mexico, to Minnesota as farmers. And so that's how my mom's side of the family got there. My dad's side, I don't really know too much about. I did my African American or my African ancestry, and it traced back to West Africa, Gabon. So I'm hoping to be able to go there at some point in time and just feel the energy of that place and maybe be able to trace some of my roots. But yeah, so we moved to California when I was 5. My mom raised me pretty much on her own. My mom and dad tried to be together for all of my upbringing, really, but it was very on and off. And so my mom had 5 kids. I was the last of her 5. The baby, she had 3 girls and 2 boys in that order. And when I was 5, her and myself and my older brother, who's 5 years older than me, Lance, moved to Oceanside. And my mom the Minnesota's in the Midwest, and it's more like a just laid back lifestyle. You know, people aren't really like, like the California lifestyle is like Hollywood.
Hustle, yeah,
people are trying to hustle. People, you know, it's like, and she really liked the glitz and glamour and all that type of stuff. So I think she was moving west, for a better life.
Yeah.
But and warmer weather for sure. She cannot stand the cold. And so we moved there on a whim, and we struggled. It was just her and my brother and I, and she didn't graduate college. She didn't really have a true profession. She ended up managing apartment complexes growing up, and so we lived in the apartment complex that she managed for free, and that was kind of how we got by. I mentioned that my dad played in the NFL, but he played in the 80s, right? And so I think I might have made his whole career earnings in my first year, in the NFL or something. It was a lot different. He's worked a job every day of his life since retiring from the NFL, and he coaches and he loves coaching. And that's just to say that back then, a lot of people didn't make kick your feet up and retire type of money. And so, and so their relationship was kind of on and off. And I say that my relationship with my parents was challenging, right? Like I looked up to my dad because he played in the NFL and had like a little bit of money, so he could kind of control and manipulate the situation in certain ways. And I had a really shitty relationship with my mom until I was like 16. And that was because I, thought that, she wasn't like providing all of the like extra things that us kids wanted or needed. And so I kind of just like looked at her in a way that was unfair. I didn't appreciate the fact that I always had a house over my head or always had food in the fridge or clothes in my closet. I didn't appreciate those things that it takes really to be an adult and being a parent. It's like, it's not just buying video games and going on trips and having fancy dinners and like the things
keeping
that,
the
like,
gas and the lights on.
And so I think as a kid, I didn't appreciate those things. And so I looked at her and kind of despised her in a way. And also because of her relationship with alcohol, she used alcohol to cope from the time that I can remember. I think same with my grandma as well. Like my earliest memories of my grandma are like going to the freezer to get her like a frozen mug and a beer, like, and so, just, I kind of had a rough relationship with her because of her relationship with alcohol. And then because of, how I looked at my father. And so, when I turned 16, my sophomore year of high school, I got in trouble for bringing weed to school. And my mom and I's relationship totally changed. We, for some reason, like sat down after I got in trouble for bringing weed to school and had like a heart to heart. And she was asking me all these questions about, because at the time she thought that I was just like a star athlete, kind of square, like, just a good kid, and so she's asking me like, why are you smoking weed, or like what else is going on, all this stuff, like you're gonna ruin your life, like, just like the things that parents say to kids, especially then,
Yeah.
they're in high school, that are starting to experiment and stuff. And I had been smoking for a while, up to that, maybe a couple of years, and so I was really, looking back now, feel like I use cannabis always as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Like it always took the edge off for me. It always made everything in life better. I was never doing it and like missing a football game,
running away from your responsibilities.
No, like I still was able to smoke and be able to accomplish the things that I needed to or wanted to.
And I love hearing stories like you. Like that reminds me of Joe Rogan, but like, the more stories of people who smoke cannabis and are successful in their light, I think needs to be more shown. I feel like so many people who do smoke weed find it very hard to be, open about it. And it's medicine. I think it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah.
Can you talk on how big football was in your life by this time at 16? Because I really want to catch back into this conversation with your mum at 16, but when was football introduced to you, and what was that journey like for you? Let's talk up until this moment at 16 where you go into high school and get caught with weed.
Yeah, so I started playing tackle when I was 6 years old. My mom lied about my age. You're not supposed to play till you're like 7 or 8. But my older brother was playing, and little brothers always want to do what the older brothers are doing. And so, so I was everyone's tackling dummy for the first year. I could not stand it. I don't say the 4-letter H word, but I did not like football the first year. I was getting my bell rung. And so then we moved to California, and I played tackle with kids my own age. And I always say now that like I knew that year that I was going to be the hammer and not the nail. Like I was going to be the motherfucker that was going to go and hit people. Like no one was hitting me anymore. And so then I played football all the way up, until recently, but played on a really, really good Pop Warner team. So it's like our little league.
Yeah.
That we beat everybody in our state, and then got invited to fly to Florida and play at the Disney Sports Complex, which was really cool. And so we ended up beating a team from Rhode Island and a team from North Carolina, and being champion the Pop Warner Super Bowls for our class. And
wow, how old were you?
10.
No way.
Yeah,
so you
so
guys.
it's like one of the highlights of my sporting career.
That's so cool.
It's the best thing ever. But
so you won like national champs for under 10s.
Yeah,
that's sick.
And so, those kids all played together from 7 years old until high school.
Wow, so you guys had a great team.
They went to high school together and won state championships and all that stuff in football. My mom moved me, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But so I played on a team full of dogs, like
winners. Yeah,
absolute
bunch of them in the NFL.
Make
the NFL. A couple make it.
So college, but not NFL. We have. The area that I grew up in Oceanside is by Camp Pendleton, a military base, and so it's fairly military. There's gang activity. There's the military. It's like it's been super gentrified now. If you go to Oceanside now, you're like, holy shit, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But in the 4th of July, or like if it was dark out where we were, you went home. Like as soon as the lights came on, you went home. Like you just knew to avoid any issues or problems. I won't say that it was like the worst place in the world, but we had violence all around us. We just chose, to play sports or what have you. And so I ended up getting arrested going into my freshman year of high school. So like the summer going in, and, hanging out with my friends down in Oceanside. And I wasn't doing anything wrong, just wrong place, wrong time. And the officers put handcuffs on us and were like, look, we're going to call your parents. If they come pick you up, they'll let you go. If not, then, we got to take you in. And so he called my mom, and she came and picked me up. And on that car ride, she's like, yeah, I can see that you can't handle yourself here with, hanging with these kids. So we're going to move you.
Wow.
And so we moved to a different school. We already lived in that district, but.
And you were traveling to go to the good football team. And then she's like, no, I'm taking you out of that school.
She moved me to La Costa Canyon High School, which is like an all white public school, bunch of like surfers. And, it was really nice, but it was not like, it wasn't a football school. I'd been open for 10 years. And so we get there, and then I guess this gets to like going into high school. I had offers from Division I schools already. So like going into my freshman year, I had San Diego State and like Boise State or something like so I knew that I was gonna have opportunities.
So how many years is high? I'm just trying to like, because majority of my audience is Oz, so I'm going to try my best to like bridge the gap. And I understand the college and high school system a little bit because I've spent a bit of time in the States. So high school's like
9, 10, 11, 12.
Years old or
No,
year at school?
Year of school.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So yeah,
15,
that's
16,
like
17,
for you're giving me the Australian version. Is that what it's called in America? 9, 10, 11, 12.
No, yeah, it's high school.
Yeah.
Freshman, sophomore,
Okay.
junior, senior year.
Yeah. See,
and
we don't
then
use the freshman
we use
sophomore.
the
Yeah.
same way.
So the last 4 years of high school, you're at a all white surfy school.
Yeah.
Much of a football program, but you're already on the radar from your other years at the other school. Like this guy's.
In order to get noticed in that time, you went to camps and combines.
Yeah, and you've been doing that.
Yeah, so I was doing that stuff. And so then we fast forward to my sophomore year, and for some reason I had brought like a little bowl piece with a little bit of weed in it to school and like put it in my cleat to like smoke after school or something. I don't know what I was doing, but I just brought it there and I stashed it there in my locker. And one day, the bell rings, class is out, I'm walking down like to leave school, and I see the assistant principal carrying this clear trash bag, and I see my cleats in there. I'm like, yo, what's up? What are you doing with my bag? And he's like, this isn't your bag. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, those are my cleats. He's like, are you sure this is your bag? I'm like, yeah, man, this is my shit. Like, I'm telling you, it's my. He's like, all right, well, come with me. And so, I guess they were cleaning out the varsity football locker room, and they needed it for lacrosse, which was the next year. So somebody was cleaning my shit out, and they found my bowl piece. And so luckily and unluckily, I went to a school in a neighborhood where we had really serious drug problems. People, doing heroin and cocaine and those types of things. So weed was like very minor offense. And so I got like an in-school suspension where they sent me to another school, and we just like were there with all the other kids that were doing drugs and in a suspension for a couple of days, and they taught us about all the other drugs. And so it was weird because we then figured out like what other drugs we wanted to do, but it was also a punishment. And so we fast forward to my mom and I having a conversation, and she's asking me about what's going on, and I'm just like, hey, look, I promise you, I'm okay. Like, you have nothing to worry about. Like, I know what my goals are. I know what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, this thing is not keeping me from that. I drink on the weekends with my friends at my friend's house. So they, some of the parents, allow us to drink as long as we're not, driving and acting up. I smoke pretty much every chance that I get, and I still have good grades. I still have all these scholarship offers. Like, I promise you, you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And so she grounded me. And my punishment was that I couldn't hang out with anyone or do anything besides the girl that I was dating at the time. And so it wasn't a bad deal at all. But in that conversation, she also opened up to me about her situation, like her relationship with her father, her relationship with my father. And it was the first time that she was really humanized to me, right? She, instead of being this like dictator who was always hard on me about, everything. My hygiene and everything, being, clean and tidy and like my schoolwork, all of that stuff. It was like, oh, damn, she's had her own issues. Yeah. And things that she's had to deal with. And so I gained a lot of respect for her in that moment, and everything changed. It went from like that, her being the person that I despised, to being my motivation for everything. Wow. And now I wanted to make it for myself, but I also was like, I want to treat this woman like the queen that she is, and like how she deserves. I want to be the first man to get her a home and get her a car, and to struggle anymore. Yeah, just like show her all the finer things in life. And
so that became your motivation for making the NFL.
Yeah, and so in high school for us, if you're really serious about sport, you can try and graduate early and enroll into college. And so I did that partly because I was serious about sport, but also because I wanted to get out of the house. Ready to get out. I was ready to get away from home. So when I was 17, I graduated high school early, and I went to the University of Oklahoma on a football scholarship. They are a big football school. I went there because of the opportunity to play right away. Like, I wanted to play for 3 years and go to the NFL. Like, the least you have to play 3 years in the NFL or in college before you can go to the NFL. So I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to go here. I'm going to do everything that I can to be the best, version of the player that I can be at the time. And then hopefully I'll be ready to get drafted after year 3. And
how's your college career?
College was fun. I enrolled early, and by the time, like, you get there in the winter time, you have the winter to do workouts, you have the spring to play spring football, and then the fall happens, the summer happens, and then the fall happens. And by the time the fall came, I was the number 2 receiver on the depth chart. So I started every game in my college career. We won our conference 2 out of the 3 years that I was there. We played in big bowl games. We were ranked number 1 in the nation and had like a whole show done on us.
Holy shit, college is gnarly. I watched the Gators documentary.
Yes.
Some of the college ball is like bigger than like the NFL. I mean, not bigger.
It is.
But some of the crowds and stuff. Yeah, right? In the town, college football, like, it's huge. For an Aussie, it doesn't like, people can't even, wouldn't even understand or fathom it. It's like your guys' college game, like 80,000 people, right? Like bigger than our grand final of like Thingo is just your like weekend college game because everyone gets around their college and their community, right?
Yeah, you can go to a stadium as big as 110,000 in college, and your average stadium in the NFL is like 40 or 50.
Yeah, it's wild. Like college ball is just crazy. Yeah. And how have things changed? I did not a bit of research, but I was speaking to a friend who's an NFL fan, and I told him I was chatting to you today. And I was like, what should I ask him because I'm not much of an NFL fan. Mm-hmm. He was like, ask him about college, what's changed now compared to even probably when you were at college, that you couldn't get paid or anything back then, whereas they can now with deals. Like, how was that? Was it, you're like the king of the college, right? If you're at the top of the football team.
Yeah. Bro, it's completely different. When I was in college, our scholarship check was $900 a month. My rent was $600. My phone bill was $100. So as a 17-year-old, I was living off of $200. And I could not make money off of signatures, pictures.
Nothing,
I couldn't have a marketing deal. I couldn't make any money. And if I did, they would suspend me.
Yeah, you lose your,
you lose your scholarship. And so I'm really happy for these kids to be able to make that money, obviously. And then a little bitter that I missed out on that opportunity. But ultimately, it's just like, it was really frustrating, and it was something that weighed on me mentally, to be honest. And
was it? Sorry, you go.
And I think we don't know it at the time, right? I'm young. I wasn't really that in tune with myself emotionally, but I sensed the frustration of like being broke, having to like sit outside of the cafeteria for like a normal student and ask to be swiped in, where like, also seeing people buying my jersey and the stadium being sold out, and they're wearing my jersey at $125 or whatever, $100 a pop, but I can't make any money off
that. Commoditizing your athletes.
So it was
college,
frustrating. Super frustrating. And that caused me to drink and party and use drugs in ways that I don't think that I really would have if we would have been properly taken care of. Was there always
though but the NFL's right there, that $1 million contract isn't far ahead? Was that like a lot of the waiting?
You can totally,
you can fucking taste it.
Just block all the other bullshit out because like it's right there.
Yeah.
And so like I said, like I would, my teammates would laugh at me because we'd be at practice and I would do something good and I'd be talking shit like 3 and out. Like, I'm going to be here for 3 years and I'm leaving.
3 and out. Yeah.
They think that I'm fucking around, but I'm like, yo,
because sometimes people are like 4 years in college.
4 years, 5 years if you have an injury. And so I was just mentally like,
I'm out.
Telling myself, it doesn't matter. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I didn't feel like I was being challenged enough by the college game. And going into my senior year, we had we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be, right? And so I need a quarterback to get me the ball.
Yeah.
So having all of these questions and then also feeling like I wasn't being challenged enough, I know myself well enough that if I'm not being challenged, I got to move on because I start to become
no growth.
Yeah, I can become like a little bit of a nuisance if I'm not being challenged.
Yeah.
It's like I need something going on with my brain or my body for me to feel like I need to be here. And I didn't feel like that about college. And so, so I put my name in for the draft.
Yeah. And so how does that work? So you're just like, all right, I'm playing good college ball. Do you have offers or anything from clubs or you have an agent? No.
So with us in the NFL, if you enter into the draft, then you're pretty much ending your clock for college ball.
Yeah.
Where like NBA players, they can enter their name into the draft, but if they don't get selected, college players for basketball, they can enter their name into the draft, but if they don't get drafted, they could still go back to college.
So how many names enter the NFL draft, like thousands,
yeah.
and then like hoping like
Yeah,
the
it's
top.
it's like 1,500 of us or 2,000 of us.
Yeah, who like think they have a chance. Like,
Yeah.
do you have to pay to enter the draft or
No,
anything? It's
no,
just
no.
like
Yeah, your name just gets
you're
thrown
good
in
enough
there.
and you say, hey, choose my name if you want. And then what is it, like how many teams is there?
32.
32 teams, and then they all get how many picks?
There's 7 rounds. I want to say there's like maybe 100.
So 210 picks if
Yeah.
there's 7 rounds of 30.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about
so
getting picked in the NFL.
I got drafted later than I was hoping or that I expected. I felt like I was better than some of the guys that got picked in me. I got picked in the 5th round out of 7. The 17th receiver. So there were 16 other guys apparently that was better than me at my position.
And for everyone listening, I mean, I'll explain in Aussie terms a receiver. So NFL, they huck the ball back to the quarterback and then they're throwing it to the receivers to try and score the touchdown. So you're like the scorer of the team, right? Yeah, you're the one who scores the tries.
We make plays.
Yeah.
We make plays. It's fun. I'm fast. I never try not to get hit. But yeah, so
how was that hit to the ego, getting picked that far down the list?
Those types of things have always motivated me.
Sick. And who picked you?
Yeah, the New Orleans Saints.
Nice.
Yeah, so I got the opportunity to play with a team who had recently won the Super Bowl. I was drafted 2013. I think they won 2009.
Okay.
So they had an organization that had smelled greatness and had done something special before. So that's huge as a player, right? To be able to come into an organization where they it's a finely tuned machine, right? Like everybody there knows exactly what it takes to get to the big game. And so I get drafted there. I get to play with a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, and I just knew my work was cut out for me, right? Like my dad played, and so we had always had these conversations about the fact that like if you're drafted in the first 3 rounds, they're paying you enough money that like they pretty much can't get rid of you.
Yeah,
right?
They're gonna play you.
They're gonna play you. They're gonna keep you. But anything after that, it's pretty much up for grabs. Like you still have to fight to make the team, right? Like
so you're like on a contract with the team, but
it's not guaranteed until you make the team.
Okay.
Yeah. So if the training camp starts with 100 guys, let's say.
Okay. Wow.
They've got to cut down to 60 something before the season starts, and so. Yeah, I have a contract that says if I make the team, I'll make so-and-so money. But if I don't, then they only pay me for training camp.
Shit.
Yeah. And so in my mind, I just thought to myself,
fuck, imagine after college you don't make the team. Like someone got a full ride thinking, all right, don't have much money. I got through college. NFL's my route. And then you just don't get a run.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's crazy. Yeah, because you're probably going on the field like, don't drop the ball. Don't fucking make a mistake. Like, such a hard mindset to play with that above your head. So what was your first game with the Saints? How long into the season? How long after training you train well? Like, you can see a smile on your face. It's gonna be a good story.
Super lucky, man, and super lucky. And this is
timing.
Tough.
Life's about timing.
It's tough to say about other people, but it's how it works in a business where people have to get hurt in order for you to get an opportunity, right? But
life's about timing.
Yeah, there was 8 of us, I think, in my position going into training camp, or 9 of us. And everybody that was pretty much slated in front of me during training camp got hurt. So the NFL works in a way that you have like 4 preseason games that don't really count for anything. They're just like tune-ups. And then you have 17 games of the regular season. And by the end of the preseason, you have to make all your cuts from 100 to 60. And then you have your team. And so week 1 of the preseason, I played with the starters and never looked back.
Preseason game and you had a good game.
Yeah, I did my job. I knew my assignment. And a part of it is timing. And the other part of it is pay, right? So they brought me in to replace somebody else who was making more money, right? So the guy his job that I took, I think might have been making 10 or 11 or 12 $million that year. And I was supposed to make $550. And so it's like, okay, if this young guy...
save money on the salary cap. Is there a salary cap in the NFL?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like, sweet, we can pull some money in the salary cap with the receiver here.
Yeah. We can work this guy out and work this guy in at, a much cheaper price. And so it's a combination of I knew my shit and I was playing well, but also like, it's a money thing too. And so, I started preseason game 1 and then 2, 3, and 4, and then started game 1 of my NFL career.
What year's that?
2013.
13.
Yeah, and so and was on a great team, and I got to play with a bunch of guys who are legends as athletes, but as humans too. And they showed me the ropes and how to be a pro. You know, it was really cool for me to be able to just go into the building every day and just watch these guys and follow everything they did, from the way that they practiced, the way that they took care of their bodies post game, prehab, rehab, the food that they put into themselves, how they treated their families, their wives and kids. It was just truly a blessing, right? So
Who are some of the role models that you're referring to?
Yeah, so in my room we had...
I probably won't know any of them, but just for people listening, and if they ever listen, it's always nice to give credit where credit's due.
My room, Lance Moore, it ends up being the guy whose job that I kind of took.
Yeah.
But, and then Marcus Colson, this team was stacked. So we had Darren Sproles, we had Jimmy Graham, we had Pierre Thomas. We have all these dudes who are just like...
To just won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And really good, high character humans. And so I love to talk about Lance, because when you have somebody, when you're fighting for a job, it's really easy, especially, for us as men who are hyper competitive and have these huge egos, to be able to not do a good job in passing the torch, and for Lance, it was like he kind of seen what was happening, and instead of being a dick and not helping me and guiding me and helping the team, ultimately, he was like, show me the ropes. It was like he would take me to the side and help me with certain routes, how to get open, my attitude, how I talk to the coach, how I respond to certain things, just relationship stuff. Like, he was just like a mentor straight up, and he didn't have to be, and a lot of people don't choose to be, and so I was really lucky. Same with in college, my mentor in college, Ryan Broyles, the same thing. It's like people that do stuff for other people with nothing expected in return. Their only asks are that you do the same thing for somebody else, and so I was really, really lucky to have guidance from people like that really set the foundation for, who I was going to be and what I was supposed to do in order to fulfill, my responsibility to them.
Mate, it's so special to hear that. Shout out to Lance and your team, but mostly, to be honest, to you, man. It's quite often we have those people around us and we just don't see it. We let our own ego get in the way, especially at the level that you're playing, making X amount of money. You're the superstar now of an NFL team. Having like the respect of those people in your insulated little environment is so important, because externally you're probably, starting to become this big profile, your local community, your family. It's like all this stuff is starting to pump the ego. To have the self-awareness to actually take on that stuff is like props to you, which is epic. But I'm keen to hear this next little chapter of your life. Let's go. How'd you move from there? Was it there to Miami?
Yeah.
So talk me through. I'm getting traded, free agent. I don't really know football. Let's talk through how long were you at New Orleans and how long till you left.
So I was there for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then was traded to Miami.
So how does trading work? You have no idea it's coming?
We don't have
You literally
choice. We have
get a phone call like, hey, you got to move to Miami next week.
We have zero rights.
Zero right. That trips me out with football and trading. Like, you could be living on the beach in Miami one day and then they're like, hey, you're going to Philly tomorrow.
And that's like the best case scenario. The
I
worst
don't
case
know
scenario
America good enough to be able to tell you.
They put it on Twitter. You read about it on your phone. You get a text message from your mom or something that she saw it on the news. Like, it can happen
without you even knowing. Yeah. That's how gnarly it is.
Yeah. Which, like, it is what it is. It's a business, but yeah, that part sucks. And so you have to be smart enough and have enough power to be able to negotiate for some type of no trade clause in your contract. But most
so some people have
contracts are pretty generic.
Make me aware of my trade clause.
Yeah. Or like, hey, I get
24-hour clause, yeah.
But so I got traded going into my 3rd season.
Did you get told or have any idea?
Yeah, they let me know. I personally think at that time the head coach and Drew Brees didn't really understand who I was.
How to get the best out of you.
I mean, I did my job and I never caused any issues. I was a great professional, but I also, didn't do the other little things that I think young players do, as far as like, kind of like kissing ass and like those type. I just wasn't like that. Like, I'm a man, you're a man. You show me respect, I'll give you respect. But I also I didn't look at Drew as a Hall of Fame quarterback. I looked at him as my peer. And so if we were, you know, in the locker room or in the hot tub or whatever, it was like, hey, what's up, Drew? And then, you know, I just keep doing what I was doing. And the same thing with the coach. Like, you know, he would like do things to kind of get under my skin, like call me the wrong name or something because I was a rookie, and that's kind of like your rite of passage. And I just didn't think that shit was cute. And so if he didn't show me much respect, I didn't show him any more respect than the fact that he was my boss and I had to do my job.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of worried them, especially then in 2013 and 14. I'm fully covered in tattoos. I had a black mohawk with blonde in the back. Like I was myself. And I don't think at that time people were as accepting of young black and brown kids who didn't give a fuck about what anybody thought, you know? And so if they would have taken the time to sit me down and have a conversation with me, they'd understand who I was. But seeing me on the outside and then my attitude towards them, they're probably like, oh, like, fuck this kid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they traded me for another guy that was not the same caliber, or it wasn't a fair trade by any means, but whatever. They got rid of me. I went to Miami. And this was a pivotal moment for me because I got traded to a team that knew nothing about like winning, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that the grass was greener on the other side. You know, I thought every place that I'd go to, I was going to have a Hall of Fame quarterback where I could just get open. He's going to throw the ball in the perfect place. Everybody else does their job. I do my job, and we're good.
We're in games.
And I got to Miami and was like, that is not true. Yeah. It's not like that everywhere, you know? And so I was playing with a quarterback now who had played receiver the year before, which like, you know, had only played quarterback for a couple years. And so there was a lot of growing pains that we were going through. We had a head coach get fired. Like it was just a total disaster. And I was struggling for the first time. And instead of choosing to rise to the occasion and go out there and set the standard, I played to the level of what I thought was around me.
Yeah.
And so my first year in Miami, I really struggled. I didn't like football. I wanted to quit, honestly. My coaching staff, I didn't have any respect for, and I didn't think that they were
showing excellence.
Yeah, I didn't think they were setting us up to have success. And as soon as I realized that, I checked out. And after that year ended, I looked in the mirror and was like, what are we going to do? You know, it's 3 years are up. Our contracts are 4 years. So, you know, after that fourth year, I'm going to have to,
so it's all still under the same contract, yes. The trading, it's all under that.
Yeah.
Also, they trade you and you got to stay on the contract that you're on money-wise, but just play for a different club.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so my contract's going to be up, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to year 4. I got to go get this money.
Yeah.
But also, like,
you hadn't set yourself up financially yet for generational, bought mama house.
And so my attitude changed, and I was like, all right, look, I might not be on a great team or the type of caliber team that I was previously on, but if we're going to be good, I have to be able to be my best so that I can hold everybody else to that standard. If I'm shit, I can't be talking shit to everybody else.
Yeah. And
so I invested everything that I had into becoming close with the new head coach and offensive coordinator, spending time with the quarterback, and into my body. So I was the biggest, strongest, fastest, most in shape that I'd ever been. I knew the playbook inside and out, so I could tell everyone how to do their job, and really was like prepared to have the best season of my life so that I could go earn a contract and make this, you know, life-changing, money for myself and for my family. And I have all this grand plan, and I've got it all in motion. I was voted captain for that team to start that year.
For the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Wow.
And before our first game, I decided to get involved in activism. And so it was that same off season that I was trying to do everything that I can to earn this contract. I wanted to vote for the first time. There was a presidential election, and I hadn't exercised my right to vote. I was 24 at that time, and didn't grow up in an environment where we thought that politics affected us. So we didn't really pay attention to it and didn't really talk much about it. We talked sports. I could tell you everything about every sport. Yeah. Stats and whatever.
Very similar, to be honest. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are like that, no matter whatever country you're from, politics, unless you're taught it by your family, you don't get taught it at school. You don't get taught how the system runs, and I think it's on purpose. But
sure.
yeah, what was the push that you just wanted to vote with the educated vote, not just, hey, mum and dad said to vote this, I'll go vote it.
Yeah, so I wanted to vote, so I had to educate myself on who I supported, what party I liked, etc. And so as I did that, I had to start paying attention to more current events. I'm watching the debates, I'm watching the news, just more like tuned in and conscious to what's happening in, like, I guess the general public, not in the sports world.
Yeah.
And the more that I paid attention to that, the more that I saw these killings of Black and brown people by law enforcement, by our police officers. And at first I was like, these people, they could have acted differently, or maybe they should have put their hands up or changed their tone, or they could, at first there was cases where I was convinced that it was the person's fault.
Yeah.
And the more cases that I saw, the more that I saw that there was other cases where people did absolutely nothing wrong and they were being murdered, and there was no, quote, justice for this murder, right? This officer would get paid leave, would not be convicted of a crime. There'd be no accountability, nothing. They would go back to work and then
continue to a different county.
And like do the same thing over and over again. And I just felt like it was wrong. There was not, like, I saw it happening, and all I needed to know was that it didn't make sense. I didn't know anything about the systems that were in place. I didn't know anything about, politics and government, outside of what I learned in school, but I just felt like it was wrong.
Yeah.
And at that time, Colin Kaepernick, Megan Rapinoe, and Eric Reed, Colin and Eric are both NFL players. Megan's a soccer player. They were both taking a knee during the national anthem. And so this was during the preseason in their respective sports. And so I was seeing that happening, and I was like, oh, okay, like maybe this is something that I can do to let people know that, I think that this stuff is wrong, and that we need to some accountability, and we need to make change.
Had you got a extent, like a new 4-year contract for captain, or you hadn't got it yet?
So this is going into that season. That's like the off season. It's happening. We're working into 2016, September of 2016. We're working towards our first game. And so before the first game of the season, I get, voted captain. And then the first game of the season is September 11th, 2016. September 11th is a, tragic day for us in the U.S. But that was the day of our game, of our season opener.
Yeah, wow.
And we had a group of guys in our team that were interested in taking part in the protests, in the action. And we, as a team, I talked to the team the night before the game. I held the players only meeting, and I discussed with the team the fact that there were guys that wanted to get involved in the protests, but the fact that we're also a team, and that it'd be great if we all could do something together.
Solidarity, yeah.
But totally understand if nobody wanted to do that, because this is, it's just not like a requirement.
Yeah, of course.
And so I caught a bunch of shit. A lot of fuck no and fuck you, and no, I just want to do what I want to do, and no, it's like, so the story that was being told by the media was that the guys that were protesting were anti-American, anti-police, anti-military. And so that is kind of the sentiment that we had from my teammates, is like, oh, well, my dad's is in the military, my mom is, and so it was just, we got a lot of pushback, and I was like, okay, no big deal.
Yeah, because what are you protesting for? I think that's like the important part. It's about racial injustice and about something being said rather than it continually being brushed under the rug. Yeah. If taking a stand and taking a knee is an action to create conversation that needs to be had, then that's what needs to be done. Yeah. Not saying you hate law enforcement, not saying you hate the military, not saying you hate America. It's saying you disagree with the injustices that are happening in places, and somebody needs to say something or it'll keep happening. Yeah,
that we need to do better.
Yeah.
And and so there was a lot of pushback on that. I just was like, all right, no big deal. Let's go win this game. And so the group of guys that decided to go out and do it, myself, Jelani Jenkins, Mike Thomas, Arian Foster, go out there on September 11, 2016 and take a knee for the first time.
Tell me how your life changed from that day.
Yeah, bro. So I mentioned that I grew up in Oceanside, California. That's a military base.
Town. Yeah, I spent a bit of time down there.
All of the men in my life, my coaches, mentors, they all served. They're all in the Marines or in the Navy or what have you. And so I knew making this decision that for the most part, people were not going to be very happy with what I was doing. And so I thought I understood what the pushback would be like. I'd had bad games in college and people would talk shit to me on Twitter or Facebook, tell me to die or say some racist shit, saying the N-word or like something, you know, I've had pushback,
Yeah.
you know, but I didn't know what it was like to have like a whole country pushing back,
Yeah,
you know?
wow.
And so, I end up really fucking up in that game. So I take a knee, whatever. I also have the worst drop of my career in that game. I'm wide open, no one's around me, deep, like super deep, and the ball's coming to me and I just have a brain fart and drop it. Like the ball was in the air for so long that I had enough time to think about the reaction that everybody was having to what we were doing, and I fucked up and I dropped the ball. And so we ended up losing that game, and I just was fucking, I felt like shitty, right? Because we lost the game. You know, one play doesn't change the game, but I mean, obviously has a big impact. And here I am like doing this thing, you know, that's bringing attention to something else, but I'm not performing, and now giving them ammo to be able to like talk shit to me. And so, I was really like broken by it. And that really just became the catalyst for me educating myself, right? Because I made that decision without really knowing anything. I just felt in my gut that what was happening was wrong and that we needed to do something about it. And really just investing everything that I had into the community to learn, okay, what is my team doing in the community to make an impact, and what can I do with, you know, my platform and who I am as a professional athlete to have an impact. And so, I mean, that pushed me to start reading more about the criminal justice system, and to reading about civil rights and learning about all of our leaders that have, fought against injustice, you know, in the U.S. and around the globe. And really that helped to empower me. You know, the more that I read, the more I was like, oh, okay, like this is why this is happening, right? Learning about privatized prisons and learning about, you know, the 13th Amendment, which basically like makes people a slave, right? If you're convicted of a crime, then now you can be treated as a slave. And so these people are now, you know, slavery is illegal, but if you're convicted of a crime, now you can become a slave again. You lose all your rights. And so all the, you know, just starting to be like armed with the tools to be able to be like, yo, like this is fucked up, right? Like I knew it in my gut, but now, you know, I know it on paper as well.
And that's what I feel like so many people listening and so many people who would be criticizing your actions would have the biggest lack of education and are just blissfully unaware of what's happening to minority groups and groups of people who are so different to them that they're almost like out of sight, out of mind. And it just, I mean, there's so much going on in the world obviously right now that it's like so easy to be blissfully unaware. But for someone like you, when you see people who look like you, who have gone through, you know, similar upbringings to you, going through stuff with nobody talking about it and just getting brushed under the rug, like good on you for using your voice and standing up or kneeling down and doing that. Tell me about that, the rest of that season. Did you end up, because like I'm just thinking the repercussions of, like, I was looking at some clips, you got like Donald Trump literally running for president on screen, roasting pretty much, you know, you and the movement live on TV and getting blasted all around media and social media. Like, how's your mental health through this stage? Tell me about some of the threats that you got.
Yes, the season was interesting. We started out not very good. We won 1 out of our first 5 games, and there was like a lot of weird things happening. Refs calling like phantom penalties, and like I think it felt like the league and everyone, you know, from the ownership on my side, were doing everything that they could to get us to stop with the protest and teach us a lesson. But we ended up going on like a 10-game winning streak and like turning things around and whatever. So there was a lot of like pushback in the locker room. A lot of my teammates like, you're not even black. Like, what do you care about black people? Or, you know, just like saying
care about everybody.
Ignorant shit. You know?
Just care about human beings getting the best chance at a good life.
Yeah. And same with, you know, the owner, the general manager, the head coach. Everyone's always like, or, you know, my teammates, everyone's trying to do anything they can to get us to stop, using every tactic in the book to try and get us to stop. And it was just, we just knew that it wasn't going to happen. But
so that was your last season on your fourth
year. Okay. Yeah. And so at first I would get home and like read the Twitter mentions and read the Facebook mentions. Like I had kids that I went to high school with, parents writing me, calling me, saying racist shit, derogatory shit to me on the internet.
Like handwritten notes and shit too.
Yes, bro. Like,
imagine someone's the gall to sit there and write a note to somebody,
get a stamp,
and all you're trying to do is stand up for people who have got injustice. Yeah. It's like the clear demonstration of the problems that we have.
Yeah. And so I thought at first that I could just read all of that stuff and that I could just laugh it off and it was no big deal. And I felt after that first year the impact that it was really having to my subconscious. I just felt differently about white people. I felt differently about law enforcement. I felt differently about pretty much everything. It was like my whole world opened up. I think you can understand this a little bit. Is like, as an athlete, we
insulated.
And especially when you have success from a young age. Like, I've been the best kid on my team, for as long as I can remember. And so everything always was a little bit like, people looked out for me
on a platter a little bit.
Yeah. And like, I did, I did everything I can to be a good kid and, and be a good teammate and all those things. But I had never done anything worthy of people being upset with me before.
Yeah.
And so to finally have people be upset with me, but then in a way that followed with hatred and racism, it really fucked me up. And, and then, like I said, reading all of those things, they become a part of you in your subconscious. And so I was just filled with hatred, and negativity. And I was already a negative person. And so, I just found myself kind of, the only time that I really felt good was when I was out serving others. And that would become, a big part of everything that I was doing, because I wanted to, one, get out and learn, but two, I wanted to be able to show people that it wasn't just something that was happening on Sundays. Tuesdays are our day off in the NFL. And so we would have some community service event happening that was being ran by a team and their partner. So we'd go and, deliver mattresses to a family that needed, or we'd go hang out with kids at recess and throw the football with them, or we'd go read to the kindergarten class, or we'd do a turkey drive for Thanksgiving, just basic
giving back to the community,
giving back. And that was when,
was it compulsory for players, or
so it's mandatory for certain players, like the younger guys, and they pay some of those guys to show up, but I was going every Tuesday with just because I wanted to be there.
That's why I love your story, because it's not like you just walk the walk and talk the talk and just take a knee and think that's yep, I've done my bit for the cause. You're out there every Tuesday going into the community. And then I'd love to, once we get up to the end of this season, talk about getting in your RV and driving around to all different stuff, because I love this part of your story where you go to police stations, you speak to police, you go to veterans, talk to them, and open up this whole world of what's happening, the injustices that are happening, and show that, hey, I'm not just shitting on police, I'm not shitting on veterans, not at all. This couldn't be any further from the truth. I want better for everyone. And it starts by us making some noise to say, hey, it's unequal, there's injustice. So talk to me about, because I'm intrigued. Did you get another contract?
Yes. So, like I said, we went on a 10-game winning streak. We went to the playoffs for the first time in I don't know how many years. And I got a new contract with the Dolphins. That was everything that I had all worked for came to
life-changing.
To that one moment of being able to get a new contract and make this life-changing money. And
was it scary? Was there talks with your manager that maybe you weren't going to because of the noise you're making?
Well, I only had 3 teams that were interested. The team that I was playing for, and then 2 other teams. And they weren't. The situation didn't seem much better going to those 2 places. But out of 32 teams, I had 3. He asked me, not to take part of the protest. I had, my coach and my mentor also asked me to not take part of the protest. People were conscious of the fact that it could affect me, but. We get to the end of that year, we make the playoffs, lose in the first round, and then in that offseason, I got offered my contract. I signed that, and that locked me in for another 4 years with the Dolphins.
Nice.
And like you were saying, throughout that year, I just thought, I'm fighting for a contract. I'm, playing at the highest level. I'm taking a knee on Sundays. I'm trying to handle my own family, my own life. Like, I have all these things going on, but also really thinking about how do I take the next step in my impact. And one of the initiatives that I thought about was a community police initiative that you mentioned about. We did a partnership with Panini Cards, which is like a trading card company, so that I thought it'd be a great idea for officers to have a gift or something to give out to kids in their neighborhood, so they have an opportunity to meet each other and like gain and build trust, right? So the first time that somebody is seeing an officer shouldn't be a time that they're being arrested,
trouble,
or they're being questioned or whatever. Like, hey, so we gave them trading cards to give out to kids and introduce themselves, and I went into the roll call of our local law enforcement and introduced myself and told them why I was there and why I was taking part of the protest. And
how was that taken? Because I can imagine that would have been tough. The first time you walk into a room of police officers, you're taking a knee on a Sunday. Everyone watches bloody football in America. They're seeing it and making their assumption of why you're doing it and thinking that it's fuck you to all the police officers. How was that, and what did you say to them? What did that conversation go like?
Yeah, well, I was pretty nervous. I'm not at that point in time, I wasn't a fan of public speaking, and I really just was like, I don't want to do this. But yeah, so I got up in front of them and was like, hey, I'm Kenny Stills. I play for the Miami Dolphins, and I've been taking a knee on Sundays during the national anthem in protest of police brutality and the fact that there is no accountability when crimes are being committed by law enforcement. I'm not against you guys. I'm not against the military. I'm not against anyone. I just want the best for all of us. And I think that if you guys commit a crime or I commit a crime, that we should be held accountable in the same way. And if you don't agree with that, then I understand. But I'm here telling you from the horse's mouth that like I'm trying to do what I think is the best for all of us as people, so that we can coexist here in this society and be able to have a joyful and fruitful life. And I thought, as an initiative, it'd be great to give you guys these football cards to be able to give out to kids in your neighborhood to introduce yourself and be able to build trust, in hopes that if something does happen, you're able to go to them and say, hey, like, I'm looking for this person, or hey, we need this, or hey, we need that. And you guys have a relationship. It's not just, you're harassing these people within their neighborhood. And so it was taken, I guess, pretty well for the most part. Everybody was cool. There was one group of guys I'll never forget, and I'm guessing they're like Proud Boys or skinheads or whatever you want to call them. But I would go and introduce myself and shake everyone's hand. And I went to reach out to my hand to this group of 4 dudes, and all of them, just like white dudes with their glasses on in their uniform, like just looked at me, just looked me up and down, and were like, and these dudes are police officers that serve our community. So I'm like, fuck, like, all right, whatever. And I wanted to let it go and not say anything. And then I thought to myself, like, damn, like, if they won't shake my hand, imagine what they'll do to people in the community, right? And so I ended up saying something to their commanding officer, and like, I don't know if that ever did anything or what that changed, but yeah. And so it was pretty well received for the most part. And I'll say that over my time taking part in the protest and speaking to people about why I was doing what I was doing, I never came out of a conversation where somebody didn't have respect or understanding for what we were doing. And I started to really take pride and ownership in the fact that I wasn't going to be able to affect every single person, right? If there's however many people on the internet and how many other people in the US or whatever that have opinions about this, if I could just impact one person and change, and be able to get them to understand my perspective or whatever, then I was doing enough, and so that kind of became more of my mission than the overall of like trying to influence so many people, because that's a heavy weight to carry.
Yeah, just trying to stay true to yourself, and the people who hear the message will follow.
Yeah,
man, it's so powerful, your story, and I'm excited to get to know this last little bit. But you mentioned before that you were quite negative, quite angry. A young masculine, full of being an athlete life. I know you've done psychedelic therapy. Was that during the NFL career, or was that post? Playing? Because I know, listening to some of your pre-stuff and knowing you now, you're such a gentle, present, kind human. I can imagine it might have been that way all the time.
Yeah.
Talk me through when you had the realization that maybe things need to change and I don't have to be this, not aggressive. I didn't know you back then, but ever since I've known you, you've been the most calm, still, present person, which is rare in young men, but I think rare in young athletes who are the superstars as well, it comes with that ego sometimes. So where was that moment where you're like, you know what, maybe I'm not happy with who I am as a human?
Yeah, I think it really hit me after I got my contract. And leading up to that, I look back at like old Instagram posts and I look at the books that I was reading. I started getting into philosophy and stuff
Yeah.
when I was in high school. And
Nice.
I posted a lot of like,
Stoicism and
yeah, and Bible verses and things that like I felt like made me think and made me want to be a better human. But yeah, after I signed my contract, I I felt like I did everything that I had ever imagined. Like my goals as a kid were to play in the NFL, go to college, play in the NFL, make good money, buy my mom a house. Like I'm a simple person, man. I just wanted to do these things, and like that was really it. I couldn't imagine the life that I live now or the things that I get to do. But like at that point, I'm like, I have done everything. I did it, checked all these things. I should be feeling like amazing, right? I should be feeling incredible. I should be happy. I should have joy, and I didn't. I didn't. I really felt empty and dark. I felt like I had this like consistent cloud over me, and um, I just felt like I had a responsibility because I had the resources now, right? Like I had money. It's like, okay, well, if I have money, I got to exhaust every resource that I can to be able to figure out if there is more. Is there more? And can I feel better? Can I think differently? And my partner at the time was an incredible human, and she really encouraged me, but like by who she was, but also with her words to seek help and to seek a therapist. And while all this was happening, I got introduced to this woman, Lori, who would end up being my life coach. She wasn't a life coach at the time, but by chance, we got introduced. She was like the family member of the head coach of the team that I was playing for in Miami. And she was doing research on adults who had worked through childhood adversity. Mm-hmm. And so she wanted to have a conversation with me for like 30 minutes or something. And whatever we talked for 30 minutes ends up being like a couple hours. And she saw my hunger for more for myself and had the tools that she was already using for some of the other projects that she was on to be able to help me move in the direction that I wanted to go. And so she gave me a bunch of assignments, things to read and listen to. But the main thing that she gave me was a gratitude journal.
No way.
And she told me I had to write down 3 things every day that I was grateful for, but they had to be 3 different things. And so I could either text them to her, or just write them in a book or whatever. But every single day, 3 things, either morning, night, whatever it comes to you, they got to be different every single day. I'm like, okay, like whatever, like I was so excited about wanting something more for myself and the opportunity to like just not be angry and bitter and like negative. Like my self-talk, my chatter was negative. I always had like smart shit to say, smart comebacks, and just like could find like something negative to say in the best moment ever. You know what I mean? Just like that, it was like my programming, my foundation was just like negative chatter. And I always use that shit as motivation. Right. And so we don't know how that like thing that is motivation or could be motivation or is helping us is also like hindering us and hurting us at the same time. And so the gratitude journal was the single most impactful thing in my experience. Wow. For my mindset and for my mental well-being.
Were you skeptical of it when you first heard about gratitude?
Come on now. I actually need to call Lori because I'm writing a book now about kind of everything that we've been talking about in my activism, but I want to talk to her about like our first couple of years working together and like all the notes that she has. But yeah, I think it might have been like a couple weeks in, and I text her, I'm like, I don't have anything else I can be thankful for. I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I can't think of anything else. And she's like, I promise you, just keep trying. Just find anything, like it's going to work. I promise. And yeah, it might've taken me like 1.5 years or 2 years when I really started to like, I was combining mindset work. So this gratitude journal and like reading a bunch about the brain and neuroplasticity. And I was combining the mindset with talk therapy once a week. And then I was casually using psychedelics. So ecstasy, MDMA, mushrooms, LSD. cannabis, ketamine, just like, you know, in party scenes and, you know, just like for fun.
Mm.
But I started to notice with the psychedelic usage, like I would, you know, do ecstasy or MDMA, and then something would be going on, and I would pull one of my guy friends to the side, and we'd have this like deep heart to heart, and I'd be there crying, you know, and it was like I was holding on to all this stuff because I was so macho and masculine that I wasn't able to release it anywhere else. But then I'd get high, and I need to let it out.
Mm.
And the more that I started to like see the connection between me like opening up and becoming closer to the person that I wanted to be, and like letting go of that ego with like the psychedelics and the therapy and the mindset stuff, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of like the perfect concoction of things, you know, that I could use to help myself and to start doing more research into these things and how they can help other people.
And then you did some legitimate, like, not saying that, you know, partying and taking drugs. I mean, let's call that, maybe that isn't legitimate therapy. But I just watched something of you online where you went and did a ketamine therapy in a controlled environment with a doctor. Tell me about that experience. How was it? Just having the space and someone to write down your thoughts and actually, you know, have it as an experience and a growth and learning experience. What was that like?
Yeah. So while I was playing, I knew that I was kind of coming towards the end, but wanted to use the platform that I had to start getting into the psychedelic space. And
so you've done like another 2 years with the Dolphins.
Yeah. So by this time, when I did the ketamine therapy, I was maybe 2019 or 2020. So I was like 7 years into the league now.
Yeah.
And as the psychedelics started to work for me, I started to look, okay, well, how can I legally talk about these things without getting pushback from the league and without getting pushback from the general public or whatever. And so I realized that, you know, people were psilocybin and mushrooms have become a, you know, really hot topic in the US, but ketamine was the only federally legal psychedelic in the US. And so the whole in the whole country, it was legalized for therapeutic usage. And so I get on LinkedIn and I'm like just finding all of these organizations or businesses that are doing work in the psychedelic space. And I just start reaching out to them like, hey, like I'm an athlete, I'm going to retire soon. And this space is a space I'd love to be in. I'd love to just chat to you about like what you guys are working on or how I can be involved, if I could be of any influence. And so I connected with this company at the time called Field Trip Health. They're no longer in existence, and they were a ketamine therapy clinic, and they, based on my research, were the most comprehensive in what they were doing, right? I wanted to be able to advocate for something that I knew they were going to take really good care of the people. So, you know, how that you needed to do a psych eval, you had to meet with a therapist a couple of times. It was like a whole process, right? It wasn't just like, hey, I want to do ketamine, like, and they just shoot you up. You know, it was like they were going to cross every T and dot every I to make sure that, you know, they weren't gonna fuck somebody over. So I reached out to them, offer, you know, myself to go and do ketamine therapy with them and do like a mini documentary about it to tell people about it. And yeah, bro, so that experience was nuts. Like I had done ketamine a bunch, you know, before that, you know, just casually, but to go into a place with a therapist that I had been, you know, building a relationship with, and you know, they shot it up intravenously, and you know, obviously when you're doing things that way, it's the dosage is a certain amount and like all these things, and so it was a pretty heavy experience. It's supposed to last for like an hour, but because I had been doing ketamine casually, it lasted for like 15 minutes. And it was so strong, like you feel like you're not even like on this planet anymore. Like I had headphones in and there's music that's being played and the woman's in the room, the therapist was in the room just for anything. If I wanted to talk to her, she'd write it down. If I needed a hand to hold, she'd be there. She just was just there watching. And it got to a point where I was so high that I like took my headphones off and I'm like, are you here? Am I here? Like I didn't know where the fuck I was.
Wow.
Like, just fully blast off, having all of these visions. And it was interesting. It was weird to get high in a therapeutic
controlled space,
in a therapeutic environment.
Did you get some positives out of it there?
It was just the experience as a whole, right? For me, I think it's hard to be able to advocate for something if you don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had done a lot of ketamine, but I had never done it in that way before, and so just learning about the programming that they use for the music, it's all like connected to brain waves that they can manipulate the brain based off of the experience that you want to have, and so just learning about the different technology, and I had an interesting experience. I didn't know or understand what it meant, what I was going through. I'll share a little bit of like, I had this vision. A lot of what I was going through when the music would change would be these different scenarios of like temples. And so in one vision I saw like a Japanese, like a Buddhist temple. And I was kind of like had this like bird's eye view above it, just like kind of going around, had all these like Buddhas like up the side of it, and like a lot of greenery around. It was kind of random. And then the music would change, and I was like outside of another like desert temple. And this one there was like a human looking type of thing with like a wolf head on it, and it was just like ascending. And it was just like nonstop, just like going up, but it just felt like this like really positive vibration of like, I guess like that the place that I was in my life, that I was just gonna keep keep going up or something. And then the music changed again, and then I was inside of a temple and it was pitch black, but I wasn't afraid. So I was just in the temple by myself. There was nothing else there, and I wasn't afraid. And then I was like, where am I? What the hell? And so I took a piece of my earphone off and was like, hey, are you still here? And she's like, yeah. And she came over and held my hand, and then my experience was over.
Yeah, wow.
But
did you feel lighter? Because was there a turning point, do you feel, that's brought you into this, not softer, but, more present, less judgmental, less, negative?
I think it's more overall the experiences that I've had. I haven't had like a hero's journey. Right? A lot of people talk about doing ayahuasca or mushrooms or
DMT or something.
And then it's like everything changes. I think it's been, if I look at like interviews of myself, or I read things that I've said, or think about relationships that I've had, I just have seen progress over time, and a little bit of time, like big jumps, and in other spaces, smaller jumps. But it was like throughout my activism journey, I really learned a ton about acceptance and about forgiveness. And it was the more that you dig deeper into activism, the more you realize that all of our struggles are connected, right? So the women's struggle is connected to the LGBTQ struggle, which is connected to the black and brown struggle, which like all of these things are interconnected, right? Power struggles. And so it'd be really weird to be conscious about one thing and not about the other. And it's part of our responsibility to connect those things and show solidarity within each other, and help work for each other, because we're stronger in numbers, and we have power in numbers. And in the grand scheme of things, like the people, there's more of us than the people that are in power. And so if we can connect all of our struggles together, then we can work together too.
Ant and the grasshopper, right? It's like once the people start to realize, wait a second, like why are we being forced to division here? Like we're all the same, and there's this tiny minority that are, moving these pieces around. Yep. It's just, it's so interesting, the world we live in. What was the end of your NFL career, would you call it? What was that? What led up to that?
The protest, I think limited my opportunities. But
how long did the protest go for? Years?
Yeah,
right?
I stayed active
every game.
My whole career. But it limited my opportunities, and they were able to create this narrative that I wasn't a good player anymore. I had never had any injuries. In my 25 years of football, I missed 1 year of sports. I broke my ankle when I was 12.
Wow.
But my whole career, I was injury free, no surgeries, no nothing.
I mean, you're the captain of your team. You're obviously, a leadership player.
all of a sudden I wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't getting open. And so I didn't have many opportunities. And the way that the league works with our collective bargaining agreement is now, because I had played for so many years, there was my minimum earnings was at a certain level, right? So if playing for 8 years, my minimum was $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Like they had to pay me $1 million, where the league minimum for an average player was 550. So if you could get two players for $1 million or one player for $1 million, and this one player for $1 million is also a shithead that's, you know, causing trouble in the outside world with activism and all that stuff, it's like, oh, okay, we'll take the two players. And so I kind of got pushed out in that way. And then also because I just wasn't willing to play the game anymore. The more that not the game of football, the game of like the political game, you know, it was a lot of like pandering and shit that was happening behind the scenes, right? From 2016 to 2019, they were doing everything in their power to get us to stop protesting. In 2020, George Floyd happens, and now they're calling me to be the face of whatever program or whatever, you know, thing. And it was just like pandering. It was
tell me to stop now. When it serves you, you tell me to be louder.
Yeah,
that's
like we would love to use you for this project, and I'm like, and it didn't feel real. It didn't feel right. So I was skeptical, and it really felt like they were just like kind of
using
like,
you as a pin-up boy.
Yeah, like poking me and like it wasn't good for my mental. And I was doing so much work from basically year 4 to year 8 on
outside
like
of football,
putting myself first, right? I was like, hold on, if I'm doing all this work to put myself first, and then now every day I'm going to work and it's a negative workplace environment, then I'm like, that's counterintuitive to like what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And so in my last year 8, or year 9 happens, and then in that off season I didn't have a deal, and so I'm working out and training, and like every mentor of mine would tell me to play the game that as long as I could, and to milk it, make
as much
those
money as you can,
until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
And I respected them giving me that insight, but it didn't feel like it was me.
Yeah.
So in year 9 I didn't really play very well. Every time, like I thought that I wanted to play, but every time I got on the field, I just
so you got a new contract for year 9 or something?
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year. Who with?
Back to New Orleans. And so I go back to New Orleans, and it's like this homecoming and everything's supposed to be good, but every time I got out there and played when the lights were on, I just felt like I wasn't interested. I would practice hard and I thought I was into it, but I literally would get out in the game and I just be like, just kind of fuzzy, like, this isn't for me. And I knew that that's not a good decision playing a contact sport. You can get killed or hurt really, really badly. And I wasn't looking for that. But my mentors were like, hey, you need to keep doing this. My dad, my mom, like everyone wanted me to, continue to play ball.
Living everyone else's dream at one set towards the end.
All right, I'll do that. Whatever. I haven't been hurt yet. Let's keep doing it. And so going into year 10 in the off season, I'm training, and I'm like, it's this waiting game, because basically what happens as you get older is once, if you're not on the team, you're just waiting for somebody to get hurt.
Yeah, free agent.
If somebody gets hurt, then they sign you. And then, so if a bunch of receivers get hurt in 1 year, then I have opportunities. If they don't, then I'm just waiting around. And I just got tired of the waiting game, and I booked a trip to Bali. I had never been to Indonesia, and I was like, I had learned to surf a little bit. I'm like, I'm going to go out there and get on my wellness stuff and surf and relax. And the day before my flight, I get a text from my agent like, hey, you want to go work out for the Cleveland Browns tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've been training all this time. Let's do it. So I call like Indonesian Airlines or whatever to see if I can move my flight. It was like double what I paid for to move the flight, and then half of what I paid for to cancel it. And so I'm like, all right, whatever, I'll just cancel it. And so I'm on the phone with the guy, like 15 minutes go by, because he's like, whatever, working through the process, and I'm on hold. And as soon as he got off of hold to be like, hey, sir, like we've refunded you your whatever money. Here's the confirmation number. I was like, bro, is there any way that you could uncancel that, please? Like, I just want to go on the flight now. And it was in that moment that I realized, like, I don't want to play football anymore. As soon as I had to make a decision, like, oh, I'm going to go to Bali. No, I can't go. And it went through. I was like, damn, I'm done with ball. Yeah. And so I went to the workout, killed the workout. They were just like, hey, we're going to stick with the young guys that we have now. They're like, you still got it, like whatever. And after that, I got home back to San Diego, and I was like, all right, I'm done. And I had been
2020?
2021. Yeah, and I was like, I had started snowboarding and surfing, and when I was snowboarding, I was having so much fun. I was like, bro, when I'm done playing, I'm moving to the mountains.
How good is it?
And so, yeah, when I got back home, I kind of packed my stuff up. I had been staying at my friend's house. That's another funny part of this journey is like I had a house in Miami, but I sold it during COVID. But so I basically just been like couch surfing and staying at friends like extra bedrooms or staying with my mom. Like I just was living the nomad life. But yeah, and so I just packed my stuff up and was like, I'm gonna go to Aspen because Aspen, Colorado is where I learned really. Like I got my first lesson there, and I knew a couple of instructors and like had some friends there. So I'm like, all right, this is the place that I'm the most dialed. Let me go to this place. And so I moved there in like December and was just doing the same thing, like couch surfing, like meeting people at the bar, like, hey, you know anybody that's has subleasing? Like, because Aspen's super expensive, like crazy, crazy expensive. And I'm have money, but I'm also like,
not stupid,
no, I just, and I don't want to be taken advantage of, and I don't need much. Like I don't have kids, and I didn't have a girlfriend or anything at the time, so I was just like, I just need a place to crash. I'm gonna get up, get on the mountain at 9. I'm gonna ride until my legs fall off. I'm gonna come back, eat, and then pass out. You know, and so I did that and had the most fun ever. That I was like, all right, this is where I'm gonna be. And snowboarding really was everything for me as I transitioned out of football because it gave me something, one, that humbled me, right? I wasn't very good. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I had to have that beginner's mindset and build resilience again as an adult and as somebody who had had a lot of success. But then I was able to like get in the flow state every day and find adrenaline and a new community and like be in the outdoors. And so that same relationship that I built with, you know, the ocean, I built with the mountain, where it was like, before we despised the snow, we're like, man, it's so cold outside, why is the snow coming? And then all of a sudden it's like you're praying for the snow. I'm watching the weather patterns every day to like can't wait for it to be out there. And so yeah, snowboarding really saved me in the sense of in my transition. Right? It was able to teach me something,
gave you something to work on,
and keep me from really like twiddling my thumbs and having this really difficult transition process, which I was honestly worried about. Like I have a lot of passions and things that I care about, but still, right? I played football for 25 years. And when you don't have that, when I don't get to have contact, skin to skin contact with somebody, like I played receiver, but like I get to hit people whenever I want to with no consequence. Right. And like I get to be in a locker room and talk crazy mad shit about all the things that I want to. Like nobody else in the real world could handle some of the things that we say and do. And so just like, yeah, you know, and so I had this like softer side of me and who I was growing into, but like a part of me has programmed for 25 years to say like, I need to have physical contact. If I don't touch somebody or move something strong around or put my body on something, then I'm like
agitated.
Yeah, it just feels weird. And so, yeah, to be able to have snowboarding in that way where, you know, I'm touching, you know, the earth.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying new things. I try to backflip.
Using your
doing
body,
some, you know, cross country skiing and
it's backcountry.
Yeah, backcountry, whatever.
So fun.
Yeah, split boarding, that type of stuff, and just like
adventuring, seeing the world. You've invested so much of your life into something, even though it's so many people's dream. It's so important sometimes to realize when the dream's up for you. And I felt the same with surfing. Like, I mean, you know what surfing's like. It's the best sport in the world. It's a lifestyle sport. It's, you know, not a high. I mean, I guess at times it gets into a high impact sport, but something you can do until my dad surfs every day in his 60s. So for me, it was really hard to let go of the dream as well of like, but there's other stuff that feels good. And I feel that it's so similar to you, man, with this idea of service and realizing, wait a second, this is really what warms your heart. Our whole lives we've gone with everyone really trying to help us achieve our goals. You do well, we all do well. Whereas giving is, you know, it's like, I don't need anything anymore. I've been lucky enough to have that for so long. Now what can I use to help other people, which is so cool that you found that path too. So the last question I kind of just want to go towards is, what are you doing now? What's like the day-to-day look like? What's the Kenny Stills Foundation? Sorry, we'll probably way longer than I expected. But yeah, what's life look like now for you? What's the future? You obviously said wellness retreat and resorts a future goal, stretch goal, but what's day to day now, and what's going on with the Kenny Stills Foundation?
Yeah, so right now I'm writing a book.
Yeah,
I'm writing a book about my experience in activism and why I started, and really just like the backstory. I was really inspired by John Lewis, who was a congressman, but also part of the Big Six, the most influential people during the civil rights movement. And I was inspired by him through reading. And so I just felt like I wanted to give my own account of my experience, not like a tell-all, not like a biography, more of like a memoir of like, hey, this is why I got involved in the protests. This is what I learned from it. This is how it brought me to the mental health space. This is how it's, my what is my true thoughts about activism, right? Activism is investment in self, right? We're all activists. We might not think it, we might not be on the front lines, we might not be in politics or whatever, but we're all actively investing in ourselves every day, hopefully, and that makes us an activist. And so being able to just like hopefully share and inspire, and use what I call my superpower in the book, which is my rebel attitude, my rebel mindset of struggling with power and authority and using that for good, right? Like as a kid, I had so much like issue with authority and power, and I still do. Like I don't like people telling me what to do. Like if I know it, I'll just do it. Like you don't need to tell me anything. But somehow, some way, I was brought into this space of activism, and now that rebel spirit and that rebel mindset has been used for good, right? And calling out injustice and working towards solutions. And so it was that standing up for myself from the time that I was a baby all the way until I was 24 when I made that decision, that gave me enough power to stand in my truth in that moment, to take a knee and say, you know what, fuck what everybody else thinks. Fuck that. My parents, it's going to affect my parents, it's going to affect my coaches, it's going to affect my community. Fuck, like, these people are going to be upset with me, but I had already prepared myself for that moment because I had stood up for myself so many times as a child. And so hoping to be able to, through the book, really express that to people, like, hey, let's figure out what these things are that are innate in us, and how do we use that for good, right? How do we take this thing that could have been a major issue for me and a big problem for me, and how do I make that into something that is able to be used for service of others and the good.
Mate, I think that's so beautiful, and it's a great way to wrap up this episode. I'm going to put in the show notes everywhere for people to find you on socials and whatnot. It's been just so incredible hearing your story, man. You've got no reason why you have to do the work that you're doing now, the activism you're doing. You could, milk the NFL career for longer, put your feet up, lived in a nice mansion, but you're doing something that's going to leave a lasting impact in this world. So you should be so proud, man. It's so, I love like that we started our first like couple of days just partying together, being loose. But then we probably now realize how similar we really are. Right. So it's I feel like we've been brought together. So hopefully I can get over to the States one day. It'd be sick to come around with you and go to some schools and share some of my mental health lessons and combine with the work that you do, because I feel, as I said, we're very aligned and we've been randomly put together out of every NFL player that Fisher could have become friends with. What are the odds that I become mates with the guy who's, doing his important work over there, similar to, I guess, some of the work that I'm doing here. So, mate, from the bottom of my heart, it's been great to catch up. It's been great to hear your story and learn so much more. I'm sure everyone listening will be very appreciative of your story and appreciative of the work you're doing, and hopefully open some people's mind to this idea that activism and standing up for social injustices doesn't mean like the need for communication and the need for dialect around these things rather than he's wrong, he's right. There's so much nuance to it all. Like we went into, you weren't taking a knee to, like, you were against police brutality, not police. Yeah. And it's the majority of police who would be like, yeah, so are we. But it's a few that get called out for their actions that, are the ones who end up being the loudest and the ones who create the racism in, just the most disgusting ways, which I'm sure so many of us have seen the videos now with phones and social media. And, just think about the countless thousands, millions of actions that have been undocumented or brushed under the rug, even worse. So what you're doing is really going to make a massive impact, man. So you should be super proud. I do finish the podcast with the same question for everyone, and I'd love to hear your answer to this. So what does being a good human mean to Kenny Stills?
Ooh, that gave me the chills.
Take your time, reason. Yeah. Now everyone's been asked that question and every answer's been different. So take all the time you need.
Being a good human. I think being a good human comes with reflection. I think I try to reflect as much every day on the things that I said and done and how I've acted and showed up. but really just doing your best. We only know what we know, right? And so part of our responsibility then is to be able to figure out the things that we don't know, and to find our blind spots, and to find those areas, and be willing to work on them, to address them. And I
think that's so beautifully put, man. The idea of self-reflection, unless we're reflecting, we don't know whether our actions are living up to our values, are living up to what we believe to be a good human. And so many of us are so not self-aware that hopefully people listening to this episode would have got plenty of self-awareness, and hopefully that little push towards reflection as well. So, my man, thank you so much. Yeah. Been an absolute pleasure. I think this might have been my longest episode, so sorry we could have wrapped it shorter, but I had too much fun. So thanks for jumping on Good Humans Podcast, Kenny Stills.
Thank you.